Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
It's playoffs, baby. Playoffs. Welcome to our live Texans-Chargers postgame show. Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network, presented by FanDuel. Joining me is contributor and the Bullpen podcast co-host Thomas Chavarria, along with Houston radio legend Jayson Braddock. And hey, you live YouTube viewers, you know it. You're a part of this as well. Join us. Hit us up with some questions and comments. And for the second time in history, the Texans make the playoffs after an 0-3 start. They're the fifth team to do it since 1990, the last 35 years. If this was figure skating, Tom, they'd be winning more on their technical merit than their artistic impression. But hey, they've won 8 in a row. And as Al Davis says, just win, baby, just win.
Yes, yes, yes. The Texans did what many people thought they could not do when they started 0-3, when they started 3-5. I can't say enough. I plan to say as much as I can. I saw some stuff on social media. I'm guaranteed we'll get into it. Shout out to the people at TX Whiskey because of the flag and the bottle. We finished the bottle 8 games in a row. I've had one of these every dub. That has equaled 1 bottle. It's been awesome. Let's talk about it, gentlemen.
Hey, Jayson, 3 years, 3 playoff appearances for Denico and Stroud. They become the 4th head coach quarterback tandem to make the playoffs in each of their first 3 seasons together, joining the Paul Brown Otto Graham tandem back in the 40s. I remember that. I'm old enough. You guys probably not so much. John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco and the Chuck Pagano, Andrew Luck tandem. Jayson, we got to remind Texans fans, the Chargers came in with the 4th ranked defense in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%. They were also second in interception rate, I think 8th in points per game, giving up 20.1. Would they give up today? 20. So right there on par with it. This is a talented team. I think a lot of times we talk about stuff during the week, but then when the game kicks off, the emotions for fans take just the best of them. And I understand that you're passionate about your sports team. You're passionate about these Texans, and you want to see perfection, but you're playing an 11-win team. It's a short week. It's a Saturday, and you have to travel there on the road out to L.A. You've got a bang-up roster because you haven't had a bye week since week 6. So 3 months straight of playing with all these injuries, they all start piling on. But this was a talented playoff team that, the Texans won today to seal their playoff, but let's not act like the Chargers didn't have something to play for and like they weren't motivated. They were 5. They're still 5-0 in the AFC West. They were playing for a division title and still in the hunt for that number 1 seed. So they had a lot of reasons to want to go out there and win today, and the Texans beat them. It's a talented playoff team. Expect to see a lot of this out of all the AFC playoff teams. Almost all of them outside of Pittsburgh have 11 to 13 weeks. And most of those haven't even played their Week 17 games and obviously not Week 18 games. So we're talking about the bulk of these possibly being 12-win teams or more by the time the playoffs kick off. So get used to just going out there, relying on your defense and making enough plays to win the game. And winning on the road in a playoff atmosphere, I think this is a big win today. And I don't understand, like Tom said, we'll get into it, some of the disappointment that we may have heard, especially for a team that started 0-3 and has now the longest winning streak in the NFL at 8 straight games.
Yeah, you got to go 16-0. I think this team has got the talent to go 16-0. Should be going undefeated all the way through the Super Bowl. I mean, I think everybody around the NFL predicted it. They were going to be the greatest team of all time, and so it's a big disappointment. By the way, Big Al says, great win, fellas. He has something to say about the Schultz penalty. Big Al, we'll get there. Plenty to say about that. But yeah, I mean, no question about it. I've just decided to throw in the trash this idea that it's ever going to be pretty. And this is the NFL. Look around the league. I mean, this is the way it is. This is the way it is everywhere. You know, you think you're complaining about your offense? Go ask team A, B, C, D. Everybody's complaining. Very few teams are not complaining about something, especially their offense. We'll go through every single possession. By the way, jump in with your comments. Like I said, love to hear from more of you guys. We're going to be checking them all the time and Texans got the ball third play from scrimmage for the second straight week. Stroud drops a bomb on his first possession, 75-yard touchdown, Jayden Higgins. Wow, absolutely stunning, Tom. Both the time Stroud had to throw behind that revamped O-line, and we're going to talk more about that, and seeing Higgins with his biggest chunk play of the season after 2 total catches the previous 2 weeks.
Couldn't be happier for Jayden Higgins. I thought this was a guy that was kind of left out of the offense, kind of phased out a little bit in positions where I thought he was in a spot to succeed. Played him in daily fantasy, played him, in some of my other fantasy leagues, like season long. Thought Jayden Higgins was going to be the guy. Nico was going to be the focal point. Let's get Jayden Higgins involved. And he basically got phased out for Dalton Schultz or Kirk or you name it. And for him to just get it off the snide really quick, I thought it was great. And this is something that now other teams have to account for him. So often you see it where teams get one-dimensional and you forget about their other pieces, and the Texans kind of look like that at times, and you wonder, hey, why can't we get the ball to this guy? Why can't they use Jaden Noel more in the offense? And I think that's coming too. But awesome start to the game.
Yeah, Brandon said, been calling on Stroud to throw to Higgins all year. Sometimes it's just the way things are set up, but I think as the year's gone on, he's gotten better. Also, it looks like Higgins just has gotten better at sort of like feeling where Stroud wants him and stuff like that. So just good stuff all the way around to start the game. And after the touchdown, Texans D, quick 3-and-out, Danielle Hunter, third down sack to get you off the field. No surprise with that disastrous Chargers left tackle situation that Danielle picked up a sack. Stroud throwing the ball like this is a scrimmage early on, Jason. First down catchings to Higgins and Hutch, and then boom, the 43-yard touchdown to Noel. The Wonder Twin Cyclone rookies activate.
Absolutely. And you're talking about that, the Chargers offensive line and how they've had to deal with injuries all year. And well, the Texans also on the opposite side of that, on the other side of the coin, Blake Fisher starting at left tackle this game with Oriente Ursary out. Titus Howard having to kick back out from left guard to right tackle with Trent Brown out, and then Jarrett Patterson having to go back in that starting left guard position. On that first pass, I mean, it was great to see Blake Fisher take Thule, who's a Pro Bowl. He's elected to the Pro Bowl over Danielle Hunter, even though they're both tied for 4th in the NFL in sacks this year. And Blake Fisher handled him late on that pass play on the Stroud touchdown to Higgins. He's able to rotate off when the linemen switch up there, and he stays in stride with him. That was beautiful to see from Fisher. Titus handled the back end. Now on this Jaylen Noel touchdown is a little bit different. We see Jarrett Patterson pull out and roll over to the right side, whiffs on the block. Same time Jake Andrew whiffs on the block. CJ Stroud has 2 guys right there in his face, looks down the barrel of that gun and fires it 50 yards in stride to Jaylen Noel for a touchdown. Like you said, Robert, this was the start you wanted to see. This team has started slow most of the season there in the first quarter and has been a clutch fourth quarter team. It was great to see him put up 14 points just right off the bat, bam, bam, in those first 2 drives.
And I'm sure as the game goes on, they'll pick up 2 touchdowns every quarter, keep it going. And
right.
Well, no, wait a second. I'm told that's not what happened. Before today, the Chargers defense had only allowed 2 touchdown passes of 20 or more yards this season. 2 touchdown passes of 20 or more yards this season. That's it. Stroud doubled that right out of the gate. So after the Noel TD, the Terminator sacks Justin Herbert to force another punt. But after a Christian Kirk first down catch, the offense punts for the first time after CJ throws it away on this little wonky 3rd and long. But tell me if you've heard this before. Texans D forces a 3-and-out, 16 yards total on the first 3 Charger possessions. So next possession, Nico, first down catch, Hutch, first down run, but Dalton Schultz, personal foul, kills the drive after he retaliates. And Big Al was bringing this up, Tom. How does an official, first of all, looking straight at Schultz, making the catch, miss that first, personal foul by the Chargers? But man, Dalton's got to keep his cool there. I mean, if you keep your cool, what just happened. If you keep your cool, they call the personal foul on the other guy, which is what should have happened. You're right there in field goal range immediately.
I totally disagree with you. They were never going to call the foul on the first guy, or they would have threw the flag to begin with. I think any grown man, when you get pushed around enough, I think the first swipe to the face, he let that go. The knee to the back of the head was the one that really triggered Dalton Schultz, and I can't blame him. The fact that it's right there for them to see, and you heard it on the broadcast, they're going, why aren't we using replay assist on something like this? Because it was clear to everyone in the building that the retaliation was there. And they're going to, and the broadcast where we don't love them, but they were like, look, they always catch the retaliator. That's exactly what happened. I totally agree with them though. If they would use the replay assist to catch the initial guy, then maybe we cut that stuff out, because I mean, I don't know how many times you get pushed around for you fire back. Clearly for Dalton, it was 2, and that's all it took.
Yeah. My point, Jayson, was not that, okay, yeah, the other guy did it, and so Dalton shouldn't have done it. My point was the other guy, if the other guy's called for a personal foul and Dalton doesn't know, in that split second, he doesn't know that the flag isn't coming out for that. But right there, you got to know, okay, if I do this back, then that's going to negate the 15 yards. You just gave us 15 yards. He's got to think in his head the call's going to be made. That's got to be his mentality, Jayson, right there.
No, normally I'd 100% agree with you, but in this instance, man, where it's not just one but 2 different things, where you're going out of your way, you're not even in on the play, you hit the guy in the face, you come in and throw your knees into his back or towards the back of his head twice on the play, and he stands up and he pushes a 300-pounder that ends up flopping. This was an NBA type flop, and that's what drew the penalty. The reactionary to Dalton being super aggressive and shoving this 300-pound man down. No, it was a flop that drew the penalty. I had no problem with Schultz standing up for himself there after 2 deliberate acts that still don't understand how you don't get a flag. Maybe the first one you let go, or if the second one happened, stand alone, you let go. But there's no way, with all those officials watching the ball, the point of emphasis there in the game, seeing actions on it for a guy that's not even in on the play or in on the tackle coming over late, and then you want to get mad that the guy gets up and pushes him. He pushed him. He didn't hit him. He didn't spit at him. He didn't swing at him. He didn't slap him. He pushed the 300-pound man, which I don't know if it's Tierra Tart who also pushed, I think it was Jawhar Jordan early in the game. He was walking back to the huddle and they bumped him and he shoved him. It's the same thing, but Jordan didn't flop. So I thought it was nonsensical. Normally I'm like, you got to be smarter about it. On this play, I have no issue with Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, they look like legs to fight guys, the Chargers, early in that game. And I was seeing some stuff that I thought was a little chippy that the officials I'm gonna go off a little bit on the officials more in a second. But like on that particular play, there's no question. Yeah, I mean, I'm just a little frustrated with Schultz just because I just thought, okay, you're up 14-0. You just have to go. You have to think time, situation, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, there's no question. You know, he should have gotten that penalty because the other guy should have gotten the penalty. But the thing is that they would have crossed out, and now you're not in field goal range. And if you're in field goal range there, if it's 3 more points, it's 17-0. With the Texans defense, I just thought it's over with. If you get a touchdown, it's definitely over with. 3 touchdowns, you're down 3 touchdowns against the Texans early in the game. You know, game, set, match. I mean, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, we're going to move on. But before we do, if you're not watching live, still want to hear from you in the YouTube comments. Let us know. For Rockets Junkies, check out this Tuesday show, Adam Spillane. And for Astros Junkies, I've got a special guest Monday to look at their offseason moves so far. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube with notifications as always, so you can get those updates on the live shows and all of our content. You also want to subscribe on your favorite podcast app as well. Back to the action. Texans D forces another 3-and-out, but then Stroud's 3rd down throw to Higgins gets tipped and picked by Derwin James. What sucks, Tom, is CJ had plenty of time, and there was great pass protection right there too.
As awesome as CJ did to start the game, I felt like this was totally on him. I think he was throwing into a coverage he had no business throwing to. If he'd have waited a split second earlier, and I know that's impossible for me to say sitting over here on my couch versus him in the pocket, but he had, I want to say, Nico coming open over the top. And I would have, for a guy that likes to take shots, I would have much rather seen him go there than in a triple coverage right there where Schultz was. I thought it was a really bad decision. There was a couple of them that we're going to talk about in this game where if the Texans are going to go where they need to go, I think CJ's got to be smarter with the football. This was just one of those where he tried to fit it into one of those tight windows where we love it when it works, but we hate it when it doesn't. And this is an instance where it did not work out.
See, I didn't feel like he was going to Schultz on that. I feel like watching live, I Bleav he was going to Schultz, and you got a man out in front, man behind him as well, and I didn't like the throw. But then going back on rewatch, and I wasn't able to go back through the entire rewatch with the later afternoon game before tonight's show. But on that play, I did get to go back, and they showed you a couple different angles of it. You see Jaden Higgins come in behind the coverage there, and I Bleav that's who CJ's going to until the ball gets tipped. And when all 22 comes out tomorrow, we'll probably have a more definitive answer on that. But to me, and I could be wrong, but after that rewatch, it looked more like he was going to Higgins, which I didn't have that big of a problem. Like Tom said, you typically have seen Stroud make those type of layered throws there, and I feel like maybe he could have got it there. Maybe it was a pass breakup, and maybe it's still an interception, but I don't think it was as bad as I initially thought it was. So this interception, the first one, didn't give me as much of an issue with Stroud.
I said Higgins. We'll get to the second one because I thought it was more egregious, but the tip was just, you have to give that guy some credit because he was being double teamed right there and still managed to jump up on a double team and make that play. Yeah, it looked like it was Higgins was where the ball was going. You have no idea what would happen if it went through, but there was a lane there if he could have fit it through there. If the defender hadn't got it. Golden Scholar says, Chargers were playing dirty. Screw them. We all agree on that. The team, Noel says, must have the best cardiologist on staff. They live for the close games. Yeah, I was relaxed on this game because I was as relaxed as I had been all year because I'm just like, well, I just knew it's coming down to something. I'm like, it's too good to be true to start off this. We know the Texans are going to get it down to something. So I was like, all prepped for that. After that interception, the Texans hold the Chargers to a field goal, though. But at that point, the only thing that mattered to me was Lassiter grabbing his knee. And after the game, Denico said Kamari told him, Coach, no way I'm coming out of this game. He went to the locker room without help, Tom. But, man, Kamari, I look at him as a top 2 or 3 most valuable Texan defender along with Stingley and Anderson. He's in that class of that magic threesome you don't want to lose.
They refer to him as a dog, and this is exactly the definition of that. Just not willing to give an inch. When I saw the play, it looked like a knee-to-knee thing where contusion. He might be out for a while. I don't know what they got for treatment back in the locker room. But
right.
Huh?
I was agreeing with you. That's where my thought process, like, what do they have in that locker room, man?
Yeah, because normally you take one of those, your leg is just shot. I mean, For me, playing sports as a kid, knee-to-knee stuff, I'm not going back out there. But Kamari is an absolute dog, and he showed it because he was out there and he was locking up guys when he came back. That's
where I needed my cardiologist because – Aziz goes out, then Kamari goes out, then Stingley, and then they all keep coming back in. So, yeah, these guys are like, it's amazing how quickly these guys are recovering for the Texans this year. That has not been the case, knock on wood. And, hopefully those guys are all going to be sitting on the bench this coming week. After the field goal, Texans go nowhere when Stroud underthrows Woody Marks on third down. Kamari's absence is felt immediately. Johnston burns Tremont Smith for 60 yards, but the very next play, Justin Herbert throws not a real good pass, but I think it went through the hands of Gadsden after Jayson, and on the telecast they missed this, but after it was either tipped by Togiai or the Terminator. One of those guys got a piece of it at the line, and then, of course, Alshire intercepts it. Is that what you saw?
I'm glad you pointed that out because I watched it a couple times. I kept pausing it and going back. I'm like, is this ball tipped? Because it looked like the angle from where Herbert released it at, that it took a different trajectory. And like there was no mention on the broadcast. So I was wondering, I'm like, hey, am I missing something here? So I didn't want to go out there on the limb. But if we're seeing the same things there, I think that's probably what happened. Again, hate to keep going back to it, but when that all 22 comes out, we'll probably have a more definitive answer on that tomorrow. But sitting here in speculation, I would tend to lead to your direction on that, Robert, where I think is definitely a tip ball. So it probably throws off gas and having to correct on the fly. And what does Denico Ryan say? Tips and overthrows, got to get those. And that's what we saw from Aziz there.
The reason nobody talked about it was because it hit him in the hands, both hands, and you got to catch those. Like, that's on Gadsden.
I would say typically yes, but it's still, when you're changing or framing up your hands there on the fly, it still can be a little bit difficult, especially for a rookie tight end there in a big moment. But I definitely agree. My dad playing Little League Baseball, he said if it touches you, if you can touch it, you can catch it, to the point. And quick story here, guys. He cut out plywood, and he cut out plywood and put like a band on the back to put your hand through it, and it would make us always throw baseball with that. And it's a flat board, so you have to put your other hand over on and cover it, because even in baseball, he didn't want to hear anything. If you touched any part of it with your glove, or in football with your fingertips, I'm like, yeah, but what if it just hits my fingernail? He's like, you got to catch it. And so I understand where you come. That's that old school mentality. If your hands touch it, you got to bring it in.
Yeah, you could say he's got to catch the ball, but you make it that much harder because the reason I knew it was tipped was the ball had a wobble to it. So it's coming to his hands with a wobble. You're not getting a straight spiral, so you don't have the point. You lose the focus a little bit. And this all happens so fast. And I wanted to point this out just because, give the Texans credit. Like, stuff doesn't happen by accident with them. They make these plays happen. This defense is legit. There were some drops in this game, but we've talked about it before. Tom's talked about it before. These drops are because guys are thinking about it. They know how hard they're going to get hit. So, and we have guys all on top of them at all times. So when you got guys
like
on
Keenan
top
Allen
of you at all times. Yeah. Keenan had a drop. So
on third down, you never see that.
I don't know if this Charger team, where they were in drop rate, but there was some stuff that was happening. I assume just was not the normal stuff for them. It was just a crazy last 2 minutes and a half too, because after the interception, Stroud gives it right back on another pick. And Tom, I don't know, what did you think of the decision to try to score by the Texans? The broadcasters were not big on it. We want them to be aggressive late in the half. I was kind of torn. Where were you on that?
I can't be mad that they're going out there to go put points up when all season long fans and podcasters and everybody are going, why are they not aggressive? Why are they not trying to put points on the board? You got CJ, you got the offense, you got Nico, you got weapons, you got timeouts, bad time management, this and that. They should put points on the board. They should always want to put points on the board. And then they go and do it, and people are like, well, why didn't you just sit on the football? and it's like, you can't 6 of one, half dozen of the other. For me, I want them to always be aggressive, much like Robert, you've talked about. Go ahead. You've got the guys. You've got, what we think is the personnel to be able to push the ball down the field if you want to. Why not do it? The Chargers are going to get the ball coming out of half, so they weren't going to turn around and get the ball. I know sometimes they sit on it a little bit because they're going to turn around and get it to start the second half. They knew they weren't getting that. So it was like, hey, pedal to the floor and try to get at least 3. And then I thought CJ just made a poor decision there. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get a view from behind him. Sometimes they'll show it where you could see whether or not he could see the linebacker that flashed in front, or the safety. I can't remember who it was, but it just seemed like he was always going to be right there. It was never going to open up, and it just looked really bad.
Jayson, what did you think about that decision?
Yeah, no, I think Tom nailed it perfectly. I mean, it's one of those few times. Normally, I got a little bit of color I can add here or there, but I think he'd stress it. I'll just confirm everything he said all throughout the year. Everyone's talking about you got to be aggressive there, and so with that point, I said, well, maybe even if myself felt like, hey, go ahead and be conservative here and all that. You've got to lead playing on the road. I'm like, well, the Texans fan base, like Tom said, podcast, everybody has said all year long, why not be more aggressive? Why not be more aggressive? And I think this is an answer to, possibly some of the things that can go wrong when you are a little bit more aggressive. But I have no issue with them going for it because it has been something they clamored for all year. And again, to what Tom said, I 100% agree with as well that I didn't get to this point in my rewatch to where I can find another angle to see if they showed one that I missed. But from the angle we saw live, it looked like it was inexcusable for that interception pass. So maybe there'll be something else we see back on rewatch. But as we sit now on the postgame show, I'm saying that looked pretty bad and like it was 100% on Stroud.
Yeah, we complimented him this year about not turning the ball over, and maybe he was just due for some turnovers. But I will say this: I just want to see the consistency more consistency from him from game to game. We saw last game he's missing guys high a lot early in the first half. We said okay, but he didn't turn the ball over. With this game, he turns the ball over. He's more accurate a little bit. But turns the ball over. So just that consistency from him. Still want to see that. Hopefully he's got his best games in him because, that would be great. It's the right time of the year to have your best games in you. After his 2 picks, Denico Autry called for, and I'm going to be kind here, a questionable trip on a sack. Herbert tripped because Autry grabbed his foot and then he fell into Denico's foot. And these officials tried to keep the Chargers in the game in the first half with all sorts of weird things. They also missed 2 penalties on Jalen Noel punt returns on the halo call, which I didn't understand. I'm sure they complained to him after the first time. The second time, Noel looks for the halo call, looks right at the officials, like, didn't we just go over this, guys? And they still screwed it up. So Autry forces a fumble on the next play, though, which ends up in a Will Anderson sack, and then that mattered because Cameron Dicker misses the chip shot field goal, which mattered big time in this game, as we're going to see. Outside of the 60-yard pass on Tremont, Jayson, the defense gave up 4 first downs and 71 yards in the first half. So if Kamari didn't get hurt in that one play, I mean, that was their first half pretty much.
Yeah, I think they showed you how valuable having 2. I mean, this is rare. When you go into team building, you look to have a franchise pass rusher. You look to have a shutdown corner. You don't expect to have 2 franchise pass rushers, 2 shutdown corners, and it shows you why the defense works so well. And it also shows how big of a blessing the Texans have had with injuries, or, these guys are banged up, a lot of those guys. So maybe I should say how blessed they are with tough guys that can go ahead and play through injuries. Like Stingley's been playing with that oblique since week 1, week 2. Kamari's for at least about a month now. And so to have 2 elite corners, 2 elite pass rushers, and then having your heart of your defense, Azeez Al-Shire there, it shows you how big that is. And if you lose one of those, it's almost like a Jenga block to where maybe it doesn't come down all the way, but it does definitely start getting wobbly because you're losing your foundation pieces.
Yeah, the toughness this team shows. I'm amazed at how tough they are considering the loss of Laramie Tunsil this year, not having his toughness in the lock. Yeah, I'm just that's called facetious, guys, if you haven't figured it out. Third quarter, Kalen Bullock, great third down play, knocking the ball out of the receiver's hands on what would have been a first down, kind of an underrated play, another 3 and out. But Stroud nearly throws his 3rd straight pick on a 3rd series in a row on 3rd and 4. So after the great start, struggling for CJ. On defense, Derek Barnett, Brandon brought it up in the comments. He came to play back-to-back sacks. The Chargers then shanked the next punt. So excellent Texans field position inside the 50. But Nico gives and Nico takes away. After his first down catch to the 20, gets called for what was a legitimate holding penalty right there. Got to give him that. That sort of like ends the whole drive in a way. It's a fair-bearing field goal. But Tom, that was on first down. So this is my problem. Kaylee gets conservative after the Nico penalty. He calls a Woody run and then a Kirk screen pass on first and second down. I just didn't get that. Like, you can't just go, we give up on this possession. We're going to go for a field goal on a first down penalty. I don't understand that.
I mean, I totally expect you to go, Nico's got to be smarter. He's got to think about time, down, and distance and where we are in the game. He can't hold somebody. I really think Kaylee probably was happy with 3 points. He saw that, CJ was struggling. I don't know that he was interested in another potential interception. I think he got really conservative the entire second half because of the pick stuff. I don't know if that's a Denico Ryan saying, hey, protect the football. And that's what changed the play calling, because you could tell in the beginning of the game, there was a willingness to push the ball down the field. And then when the game tightened up, you saw the Texans tighten up. And I don't know if that's a recipe for success long-term. It's just something that I've noticed with the Texans, where they know what they have on the defensive side of the ball, and they're willing to say, if we have a lead, we feel like you're not going to be able to go get points against us. And they're playing that way. That whole play you just diagrammed was 100% conservative because of the scoreboard.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, you could have gotten conservative at the end of the half, and instead you get an interception, and then you get conservative. They kind of sort of pick and choose their times to be conservative, which is bizarre. And I went after Dalton Schultz because the fan base tells me it's okay to go after Dalton Schultz. I don't know if you've heard this, Tom, but they don't like him very much. So I'm allowed to go after Dalton Schultz if I want to. 3rd and 14. The Texans get beat badly on a QB scramble. Have we heard that before? Then Lassiter. And this was a play that could have another play that would have just shut the game down. He drops an interception in the end zone. It was right there for him. And I was hoping that was going to happen. But, they just missed some huge chances in this game to put it away before that last few minutes. A couple plays later, Herbert gets a wide open Gadsden. And Jayson, I think this is the 4th time the Texans D has been beat by a tight end in the last 3 weeks. Is that right?
I don't know the exact number on it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I know Trey McBride just ate their lunch, and then Brock Bowers was obviously able to find some success there. And, we're talking about all this blowback on CJ Stroud and what he has to be better about, but Stroud's been sacked 1 time in the last 3 games. 1 time. And this is with the backup offensive line he played this week against a team that's 6th in the entire NFL in sacks per pass attempt. And you talked about Kamari Lassiter dropping that pick. That'd be 2 picks that Herbert has in this game. He fumbled the ball twice, even though he didn't lose either one, and he was sacked 5 times. And so I feel like, we really need to look at the competition Stroud is going to be playing in these playoffs now that they're officially in, whether it's Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, and old Aaron Rodgers, with the exception of Josh Allen, who has played big moment games there in the playoffs. Most of these guys are going to have those up and down struggles against elite defenses, which are what mostly you're going to be playing in the playoffs. And most of the outside of Josh Allen, I would say I would roll with CJ Stroud, unless you're really buying that Aaron Rodgers turned back time a little bit, like he said, found a little bit of Benjamin Button. And last thing before I miss it, I think it was Golden in the comment talked about resting should the Texans rest the starter. I don't know if you want to save that until after the end of the game preview, going through all the lineups, Robert.
Yeah, let's talk about that down the road later in the show, because that's going to be a big thought process this week. Next possession, after the Texans get a break on a questionable roughing the passer penalty, and that was one of the plays that they actually got a call on. Stroud makes another bad decision on 3rd and 7. He had Schultz and Higgins running crossing patterns, but he tried this impossible throw to Nico in double coverage 20 yards down the field. This is the type of stuff that just sometimes bugs me about Stroud, where he makes the hardest throw that he could try to make on a 3rd down. And we can get back to Stroud in a second, but I got to say props to punter Tommy Townsend, who looked like light years better than their punter did and was a big difference in this game, and Jamarcus Ingram, because those 2 guys put the Chargers on the 1-yard line. So after another bad Charger punt, the Texans have a chance to put it away with a score. Woody Marks and Jawhar Jordan run the Texans into field goal range, and Fairbairn hits a huge field goal. And Tom, I got to say, the Texans' revamped offensive line did their job. 118 yards on the ground. The yards per carry is not going to look good, but I watched it with my eyes, and I'm just telling you, I think they did a great job in the run game. They gave up 0 sacks, as Jayson just pointed out, just 1 sack in the last 3 games. For what they had to do this week against the quality of competition, I just thought, give this O-line credit and give the guy that nobody was super excited about hiring prior to the season, Popovich. They thought, oh, he's coming back. This guy, we don't like him. He was there. Why didn't he do anything? It's obvious. He had his hands tied behind his back last year because this O-line just looked way more prepared.
Fair assessment all the way around. I look at it like, hey, a rookie O-line coach, took him a while to get it going, but once he moved the chess pieces around, got it going, much in the same way that, a rookie offensive coordinator started off slow, and now he's starting to get just enough offense out of this offense to be able to put enough points on the board to get out in front of teams or come back and beat teams where they weren't able to do that early in the season. I think this was always going to be the thing. And we've talked about it all season long, where the Texans were going to lean heavy on this defense, and we thought they had to be otherworldly. And in a sense, they did early on. But now we're seeing they can just be very, very, very good. And the other parts of the team will come together. I thought the special teams had a great day. I think that's 2 weeks in a row. Special teams has really come to play. So you're starting to see the defense get the help that it needed, and that's why you're seeing this streak run up to 8 games. And it was always going to take time. I think Denico was preaching time, and a lot of people early on were like, well, maybe Nick Caserio can't draft offensive linemen. Maybe D'Amico Ryans isn't the coach of this football team. Maybe Cole Popovich was really just, an assistant that couldn't figure it out. Maybe Nick Haley isn't the guy. And now 8 games, 8 wins later, I don't see a reason for them to have to like be worried about their jobs at all. They look really good. They're not going to be perfect. Jayson led off with it. You've talked about it. This is not a perfect thing. Other teams around the league are not perfect, but they're very, very good right now.
Yeah, and just personally, my feeling is, Nick Haley, what's going on with offensive struggles right now is more Stroud than Haley at the moment. But, I mean, people can differ with me on that. Just the last part of this game, Texans had a sack that more or less ends the game. But Petrie called for a killer penalty. We're going to come back to that, Jayson. So bookmark it. Then Azeez penalty. That sets up the Hampton touchdown. But Dicker misses the extra point. So if not for the 2 chip shots, Dicker missed, the game's tied right there. So that's big. Texans need first downs to put the game away. Nice first down catch by Nico. And then I got to go to this, Jayson. After all the questionable calls against the Texans in the first half, what did you think about the 3rd down illegal contact with Hutchinson, and how did that compare to the Petrie call?
Yeah, no, I think you're in the same spot there, to where if you've got a problem with the Petrie call, you got a problem with that one. If you don't have a problem with the Petrie call, you shouldn't have a problem with that one. So, and in essence, it cancels out. The reason people are just talking about the last one more so is because it iced the game. I mean, it wasn't one that had more value in the game except at what time it happened. And I see the Charger fans, complaining about the refs and all that, saying that, look, this game felt like, for the most part, that they had a game 2 days after Christmas, Saturday afternoon, and they kept trying to pull the Chargers along to keep them in there and give them opportunity. There were so many bad calls and no calls. At halftime, Texans had 4 penalties. The Chargers had none. I think it got up to like 6 penalties for the Texans, with the Chargers having 0 before they finally got called one. So, no, I mean, if the Chargers are complaining about penalties, here's the world's, play me the world's smallest violin, because it definitely does as far as that penalty.
Yeah, these refs, I was going to say, these refs, like, it seemed like they were calling plays to call plays at the end of the game to like, hey, I'm getting a paycheck to be a ref, so I need to call a play here. And it blows me away. The two ones that they really screwed up for the Texans, that Denico Autry and then not calling the Schultz stuff. I mean, you're looking right at it. These are people with the football. I don't get mad as much if you miss a holding penalty because you're trying to look at 4,000 different things. Like offensive lineman holds somebody gets a hand to a face on defense, whatever. Those I don't mind you missing. But I mean, you as a referee, the last thing you want to have happen, Tom, is to have a fight break out. And when you're not, calling, the play on Schultz or whatever, if you're not making that call and a couple of these other cheap shots, Jayson mentioned one against Woody Marks early in the game where the guy just pushed him out of nowhere. And there was another one, I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but there was like 3 plays where they just took cheap shots. And that's where, like, if you're a ref, that's where games get out of control. So if you miss those easy ones that you're looking straight at and they're obvious, like after plays, you're looking at the ball. If Woody Marks just ran with the ball and he gets pushed, you should be looking right at it. You're looking right at Dalton Schultz. It just blows me away that these guys, how do you miss that? Like, I don't understand it.
I totally agree. I thought they were really bad. I think a lot of people would agree they're really bad. But I can't and why we're at difference with the Dalton Schultz thing is because I can't be mad at the guy for taking 2 shots and then finally giving one back. And again, to Jason's point, that's a big man to flop like that. Like that's a professional Emmy, Oscar winning flop that it's like, if I'm a referee, I'm more insulted that you want me to throw a flag for that. Like if I see you throw your hands in the air, I'm putting that thing back in my pocket because I know you're trying to sell me. But it is what it is.
I felt like the first Jalen Noel punt return you were talking about, Robert, was probably the easiest call in the game. And I still, like, if you go back and watch that, the guy arrives and hits him as he's still trying to field the ball. You never miss that call. You never miss that call. I mean, it's just everybody's eyes in the entire stadium is on that, and you've got multiple officials there. So I felt like that was the most blatant miss in the entire game. I'm like, what are we even doing here?
It hit him in the shoulders, the defensive guy in the shoulders. That's why Jalen couldn't catch the ball because the guy was hitting him as he was trying to catch. So it hit him directly in the shoulders. And I couldn't even believe that the on the broadcast they didn't mention that because I mean it was just so blatantly obvious. A little Chargers biased, and I don't think these guys care one way about the Chargers, but it felt that way. And I mean, people who criticize Rich Eisen, I don't think he cares about the Chargers. I just, I think he missed some. I think he had a bad game too. Our friends at FanDuel now have the Texans, Jayson, at plus 550 to come out of the AFC. The Broncos are the favorites at plus 370. After Denver, it's the Bills, Patriots, Jags, and then Texans in that order. Is that the order you would put them in, Jayson? Broncos, Bills, Pats, Jags, Texans to win to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC?
No, if I'm just being honest, I think playoff football is a different beast, and being there and playing those type of games and having that experience is huge. So I'm putting the Bills 1. I put the Texans 2. I put the Jaguars 3 because I don't respect the Patriots and Broncos as much as anybody else. Aaron Rodgers, I know he's gassing himself up, but I'm not buying. And so who else? Oh, and then you've got the Chargers here. So I think the top 3 are Bills, Texans, and Jags. I think the AFC South truly has 2 of the 3 best teams with the best shot to go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, with them playing for that AFC South, I don't think they get matched up in the AFC South matchup. I mean, the AFC Championship game, if they're both able to make it there, because you might have to play the Jags in the first round. So I do think there's a big chance that it could be Texans versus the Bills in the AFC Championship game. And so when we start talking about resting the starters next week, I'll let you know why, which way I'm going on that way and why. And it will have to do with that Bills-Texans AFC Championship game possibly.
Tom, what did you think of how Kaylee divided the carries? Woody Marks had 18, Jawhar had 9, Chubb had 1. Do you feel like that's the way you would like to see them divided up?
I'd like to see more Daria Bungawale.
Nice.
Don't even joke about that. Don't joke.
I thought it was good. I love that we're keeping Jawhar Jordan involved in this football team. This was a perfect opportunity to go back to the Woody Marks, Nick Chubb and 60-40 and be done with it. Jawhar showed a lot. I think you want to save as much tread on the tires for Nick Chubb. He's not a spring chicken. He's getting, I think he's on the wrong side of 30. I can't remember exactly his age. So for me, if they're not gonna turn the football over, knock on wood, then keep handing them the rock. They've shown their ability to find spaces and fall forward and get tough yards. Absolutely keep going with those guys the way they are. I think it's a great setup.
Jayson, I'm wondering, did you get much of a chance to look at Blake Fisher in his first start? He went up against a Pro Bowler who was actually named to the Pro Bowl over Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, no, I on the rewatch, I got about a little bit over a quarter, maybe close to a quarter and a half in. And at that point, most of my eyes kept going to Blake Fisher because I was so intrigued. You remember talking to you in the offseason, Robert, I told you, I know everybody's wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater with Blake Fisher, but some guys learn at a different time. I think here in Houston, Texans fans got burnt so bad by Kenyon Green that they're thinking like, hey, Blake Fisher's the next Kenyon Green. And they're two completely different dudes. What I saw from Blake Fisher, especially on that first Stroud touchdown, he handled Thule perfectly. He did some things really well. Another time he didn't come off when, I don't know if it was a stunt or the Thule was just looping around. He stayed on his man a little bit too long on passing off the Jarrett Patterson at left guard, so let Thule just loop around. Stroud still made, even with Thule bearing down on him, it was 3rd and 7. He fired it through this closing window to Nico Collins to pick up the 3rd and 7. So great job by Stroud there. So you expect that with him only playing as a swing tackle for most of this year in jumbo packages. But in the run game, in the passing game, I thought he played well. Technique-wise, you see some things where he kind of Gumbies. And what I mean by Gumby is that he's bending up top and torquing his body instead of just using technique. And that's the thing that drives me crazy is I think he's making it all physicality when he doesn't need to. If you just work out your technique, you can step in that foundation, maybe take another half step and use your technique. And I think he can step. But y'all were talking about Cole Popovich a little while ago. I think he's done a great job to get him to this point where not only can he, and I thought it was genius of him when you have the O-line problems to put Blake Fisher in there as that jumbo package, 6 offensive linemen. You're not putting him out there on an island. He's got help with the left tackle or the right tackle, and he's still getting live game reps against NFL edges. So I thought it was smart the way they utilize him. I think we're starting to see some of that growth. But from what I saw without doing the rewatch fully all the way to this point, not having the all 22 at this point, I thought he did. I thought he did definitely very admirable. And I didn't see too many plays where he was horrific like a lot of people were projecting.
I'll throw in the fact that, my God, he got through an entire game without a penalty.
I knew it was coming.
I mean,
how much money did you lose on your over-under?
Right.
I put the over-under at 2. I put it at 2.5 before the game. So I was pretty excited about that.
Actually, I'd say this, Robert, my last thoughts on that, Jarrett Patterson at left guard looked far worse than Blake Fisher did at left tackle, in my opinion. Again, just on the live watch through, it just looked like Jarrett Patterson struggled a bit more, definitely more than Blake Fisher from what I saw.
Jayson made note of this on social media. Henry To'oTo'o. He doesn't get much love, but give it up. 5 sacks for the Texans altogether, but To'oTo'o had 12 tackles, 5 solo, and a TFL. Tom, is he your defensive MVP?
I don't know. I mean, anytime Derek Barnett gets 2 sacks for the first time since 2020, I think he deserves some love. I do appreciate what To'oTo'o does. I know he's a liability in coverage. Everyone knows it. You know who else is a liability in coverage? Jalen Petrie. And you know what he is? A friggin' Pro Bowler. So you can be a liability in coverage and do other things well and still be valuable to this football team. And I think Henry To'oTo'o is exactly that. There are deficiencies in his game, but what he does is he is a tackling machine. He's going to stick his nose in there.
Downhill.
Exactly, 100%. So for me, definitely maybe 1A, 1B. I love that Derek Barnett got in there and got 2 sacks. I think that's awesome. So he's my guy, but I can't argue with To'oTo'o.
Yeah, To'oTo'o, I just think all around, he was everywhere. If you were paying attention, it was like, oh, there he is again. And he was going sideline to sideline real well, taking care of guys. Open field tackle that was huge at one point during the game along the sideline. So just want to give him his, because we've messed with him a little bit. Also want to point out, Jayson, like you were talking about it earlier. We were talking with the people online earlier that, like, okay, what do you do next week? To me, it doesn't matter like where the seating's going to be. It just matters too much to screw with Stingley, who is banged up, Lassiter, who's banged up. I don't even want Will Anderson out there. I mean, you have Derek Barnett, so you're still, got a guy out there that can play a little bit. Denico Autry, you could still put a passion. If they want to leave Daniil and let him play a little bit, I'm okay with that. But those three guys to me matter so much that I don't mess with that. And the Texans, their strength going into the playoffs is defense. So, I'm going with that. And we know Davis Mills can beat anybody. I mean, he's just a win waiting to happen. So they can win. They can win without Stroud if they need to.
I'm a different with you here, and I'll give you a little reason why. Because going into this week, I had wrote in detail about the kind of win-win, glass half full, even if the Texans lost this game. Like, say the Texans lost tonight, and then the Colts win tomorrow, and the Bills win tomorrow. Well, then the Texans are locked into the 7th seed. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. At that point, I say 100% rest all the guys that are banged up that you need to, anybody you're worried about an injury. But with them win, the reason I stated that was because I felt like it shifts if the Texans win this game, but it's a good thing that it shifts. You'd rather have the luxury of being able to rest guys, but I don't want to say you'd rather have, because I think this puts you in a better position. You're still in play for the number 3 seed. And even if you don't get that 3 seed, and I know the Jags should beat the Colts. The Jags, I think they got the Titans next week. They should beat the Titans. So it's unlikely you get that 3 seed, but you're still playing for the first time ever for 3 straight AFC South championships. To me, that would be a big deal. And it's an even bigger deal to jump. You already went from 7 to 6 seed today with this win. To be able to jump from 6 to 3, so now you've got home field in the first round. So that's huge. If you win, if you win next week and the Jags either lose this week or next week, you jump from 6 to 3. But even if the Jags don't lose their next 2 games, the Bills have the Eagles this week. If the Bills lose that game, you move from 7 to 6 now to 5. You jump over the Chargers and the Bills. What have we said all year? The NFL's finally got the parity they want, especially in the AFC. So I probably fear the bottom half of the AFC playoffs more than the top half. New England, Denver, all those teams that's going to be 1, 2, maybe even the Jags at 3. I think they'll be pretty good. Excuse me. But there's a very good chance if you're the 6 or 5 seed that Buffalo, maybe even the Chargers. Chargers are 5-0 in the AFC West. They beat Denver this year, and they got to play them again. So Chargers might draw the Broncos at one point. They could definitely go into Denver and beat them. So what that means is even at the 6 seed and the 5 seed, you might still get home field for an AFC championship game against maybe the Bills, maybe the Chargers, but you're also still in play for that 3 seed. Excuse me.
How would you handle it, Tom?
I think a lot of it depends on what happens tomorrow. Obviously, you're going to have a very good idea of what needs to happen for you the following week. And to Jason's point, if you can play for a home game at any point in time, you should, because the Texans don't want to travel to Buffalo. You don't want to travel to any cold weather cities, right? They just don't play as well. At least that's the general feeling. They definitely would enjoy the friendly confines of NRG over, the wintry Northeast. So I think if there is any possibility that you can keep from having to go to Buffalo, keep from having to go to Pittsburgh, keep from having to go into New England, then you do it. You do it. Even if that means you're playing for a seed so you don't face them. To Jason's point, if I can play for the 5 seed and I now don't have to, I'm not in the bracket wherever it may land, that I don't have to go to Buffalo, I got to do it. I mean, if there's nothing to play for, then yeah, absolutely. You sit your guys, you rest them. But if there's something to be gained, in either scenario, you got to go get it, especially against a team that I don't feel you need to play your starters. If I'm the Texans and I have something to play for, I need Kaylee, I need Denico to go, look, I want the pedal down, and I want to get out in front early, and I want to sit my guys in the second half. I basically want to run them out the building. And that should be the thought process. It's easier said than done, but the Colts have nothing to play for. So they're just literally playing spoiler. You get on top. Now you make that climb heavy, and Unc Rivers can't throw the ball 30 yards. So that changes how you defend him.
Does he even play? Does he even play now that they're eliminated? And DeForest Buckner just went on IR.
Good point.
Yeah, I don't think you need Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley out there to beat Riley Leonard. And that's just my thought. Like, if they didn't trust Riley Leonard to play over 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, then, to me, that says a lot. And I don't know if I agree with you guys, just because health is, everything can hinge on health. And I definitely don't agree with Tom about this idea that I'm scared of cold weather. Like, the Texans are built. This is what this team's built for. They're built for cold. Like, nobody wanted to get hit in Kansas City because the Texans were all over the place, and they were dropping passes because they were waiting for the Texans, and it was cold outside, and that ball was hard. So I'm like, yeah, take me to the cold. I don't care this year. And really, in the history of the Texans, they play well in cold weather, except if it's against Patrick Mahomes or, Lamar Jackson at his peak. Those guys are going to cause them problems. But like, overall, the Texans in cold weather, they've gone up to Lambeau and they've won in snow. They've won in sleet and snow in Chicago over the years. So it's not like this team has a long history. And of course, this is a whole different group of guys. Kamari Lassiter, I think, if he had like frostbite and his wrist fell off, he'd just be like, okay, that's all right. I'm not leaving the game, coach. I'm not leaving the game. Will Anderson, his leg comes up. I just think a new leg grows there because he's the Terminator, and he just keeps going. So, like, I am not scared about the cold weather. I'm not scared about going on the road. So, it's how Denico looks at this. Are you more concerned, like, because if you've got this defense out there, I don't care where you are, they can beat anybody, anywhere. And if something happens to Stingley or Lassiter and we're down to Tremont Smith, I'm personally scared to death. Maybe you could play Will and that would be okay. Daniil, I think, is fine. Stroud, I think you should be able to win with Davis Mills if they're playing Riley Leonard. But, that's me. But like, I'm just not worried about the Colts to where we're not going to be in the ball game because we sit a couple of guys.
So you're thinking about the wrong side of the football for me. I'm definitely not talking about the defense when I'm talking about the cold. I'm talking about CJ Stroud. I'm talking about that offensive line. I'm talking about them being able to score points. The defense travels. That's the age-old adage. Defense travels. They're going to play well no matter where they are. You're 100% right about that. The offense is what I'm concerned with. And give me the best possible scenario for the offense, because the offense is probably the most challenged. So that's where my concern lies. You're right. They should beat the very, very beat down Colts, but they should have did that to the Raiders too. And the Raiders were all the way in that game, all the way until the end. And you just can't sleep on anybody in the NFL. Guys have different motivations. You got guys that are playing for incentives for sacks and receptions and yardage and new contracts. You cannot sleep on anybody. You have to go in there and take it from them, especially in their, whatever walk year or whatever. There's always so much that goes on there that I'd much rather have my A team go in there, do what they got to do, and then if we get on top, then you do that. If there's something to play for. Obviously, if there's nothing to play for, sit everybody.
They had perfect weather in the dome today on offense, and outside of the first two drives, they stunk the whole rest of the game. So I don't know. This offense, they could suck anywhere. Like I don't think it matters a whole lot. They can all of a sudden go into the tank and can't move the ball anywhere. That's just the way they are. And look, our wide receivers should know how to play in whatever the weather is, because 3 of them went to Iowa State. Nico, he was playing at Michigan. So, good guy. They should be able to catch the ball in any weather. And CJ Stroud should be able to play in cold weather. Played in Columbus. So even though he hasn't played tremendous in the cold weather, he should be able to do it. But I mean, it's just like we look at where they played at cold weather and struggled. And to me, Jayson, it's about the teams that they've played when they've struggled and where they were at that point and where they are now.
Yeah, I just don't know, because I think if you're playing in a cold weather game, especially if you're up there in Buffalo, possibility of snow, maybe New England, then what you really need for that game outside of a talented defense is a running game. And I mean, are you taking Travion Henderson or the Texans backs? You're taking Travion Henderson and Drake May, a great scrambling running quarterback. Are you taking Josh Allen and James Cook? Are you taking C.J. Stroud and the Texans running backs, Woody Marks and Jawhar Jordan? You're taking Buffalo, and then it's in their house, in front of their fans, in their element. And then again, if it's snow or even in the cold, if it turns into a running game, they have more stability in that asset. So I think if you can, yeah, it's a great conversation, like the chicken or the egg. Which was more valuable, player health or home field advantage? And I think if you're talking about, for sure that player A, and he's a prime, top tier player, is going to get hurt, and that's always the risk, then I mean, you're obviously going to say player helps the more valuable. But without knowing that player is going to get hurt, and also having the capability of possibly, like y'all said, get up big and then send those guys to the bench possibly against a Colts team, then I think that home field advantage, even if you're thinking 2 rounds down the road there, I think that's big. I mean, if you're hosting the AFC, and plus what it means for the city, that to the where, like, Buffalo's the 6th seed. Let's say this. I know we know the Texans are the 6 right now. Buffalo's a 5. Let's say Buffalo loses to the Eagles. Texans beat the Colts next week, and they jump Buffalo, and Buffalo's the 6th seed or whatever, and the Texans are the 5. Now Buffalo wins over Jacksonville. Texans beat Pittsburgh, and then the Chargers, whether they win or lose New England, then it gets to that point after that round. You get to the AFC Championship. The city of Houston is hosting their first ever AFC Championship with the Texans organization since 2022. That is huge. We saw how this city turned out in 2017 for the World Series with the Astros. You know what I mean? So I think what that would mean, that home field advantage, and then playing in your dome or a retractable roof stadium, I think it is widely more advantageous, unless you tell me Will Anderson, knock on wood, goes down in week 18.
Big Al says, I worry about Fairbairn's kicking in the cold.
Great point.
Maybe I don't know what his record, what his field goals are in the cold. If you've got it, Big Al, let me know. I haven't looked up his cold weather climb kicking, but something to think about. I don't know if that's, something that they would be concerned about or what, but obviously he's a big part of the offense. We know how important he is with this team. Every point mattering when, them not getting into the end zone like they should. But let us know, even if you're not listening live, I want to get your comments. What do you think the Texans should do this week? Definitely let us know. Next week, we'll talk about the Colts, but it looks like we're going to be talking about where they're going to be playing the playoffs next week. And that's fun. I mean, that's a great post game right there, talking playoffs the next week. That's going to be fun.
Playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Just remind everybody where they can find you, Tom, what you got going on. The Bullpen is the podcast, correct?
Yes, sir. At Third Chris Tom on Twitter, at TC Tom1 on Instagram. The Bullpen podcast, I believe it's Bullpen at Bullpencast on Twitter. Come check us out. We'll be breaking this down and talking about next week as well. I believe it'll be on Wednesday. We'll go live, and look out for that on Twitter. We'll post it up.
Final thoughts from you, Jayson, and where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you can find my stuff at Jayson Braddock on Twitter or X, whatever, however you get down. Different flavors for different neighbors, I guess. But my work still at drroto.com, but with fantasy season kind of winding down here, you can definitely still follow me at Jayson Braddock throughout the off season. Final thoughts. Some guy I don't think we got a chance to mention him in there. Miles Bryant missed 2 tackles. Missed a tackle on both of the Ashton Genty touchdowns. Kudos to Kayvon Wallace, Robert was talking about when we were focused on all the D tackle injuries. Robert brought up an excellent point last week about how they've been hitting so hard at that other safety position this year. And we ran through all the guys. Miles Bryant misses a tackle on both Ashton Genty touchdowns last week. Denico doesn't stand for it. Signs Kayvon Wallace from the practice squad to the active roster. I thought he showed up all over the field today and was an upgrade over Miles Bryant. So that would be my final thought on this game.
Real quick. Packers just lost to the Ravens, and Snoop Hundley and Derrick Henley ran all over the place in their building.
Oh, wow. So if the Steelers lose tomorrow, Lamar and them might creep into the playoffs because they got Ravens Steelers the last week for the playoffs if the Steelers lose tomorrow, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So it can happen, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with Harbaugh and Baltimore. So that's not something I want. So if that plays into it, let's wait and see on that. I also want to say hello. I see my buddy Red Nation blog. Go check him out with the Rockets. He joined us, Bryson. Good to see him. Thanks for joining us on the Houston Sports Talk Live Texans postgame show. Thanks for all of the great feedback, and just I want some more of you guys to jump in. So like I said, spread the word, let everybody know about us. Really appreciate it though. Today's show presented by FanDuel. Go check out our friends at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. Thanks again to Jason and Tom and Texans. 8 in a row. They're headed to the playoffs. They start off 0-3, 3-5, look dead in the water. And they did it again. Unbelievable. Congratulations to Denico. Congratulations to CJ Stroud and the entire Texans franchise for pulling it off. Go Texans.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.